Good evening, everyone, and Sat Sri Akal. My name's Rita Chudder, and I'm Director of City Sikhs. And we're delighted to have you here this evening to talk about one of the most important issues affecting the Sikh community at the moment, and that's around organ donation. We've got a really esteemed panel of speakers today that's going to take you through some of the issues and some of the concerns that you may have sitting there thinking about whether to become an organ donor or what that might mean for yourself and your family. So without further ado, we've got a lot of information to pack into a very short space of time. I'm now going to hand over to our project coordinator for this, Hardeep Singh Marwar. Hardeep.
Hi, good. Thank you, Rita. Just want to check that my audio is coming through okay. Hi, guys. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Okie dokie. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. So my name is Hardeep Singh Marwar, Ambassador for City Sikhs and also Outreach Coordinator for this organ donation campaign. So what we have here is a spreadsheet which goes through some nice information which explains in depth everything that there is to know. And hopefully this goes towards answering most of your questions. And if anything remains, certainly put the questions forward to us and we'll be more than happy to answer them. So, organ, tissue and donation. What is organ and tissue donation? Organ donation is the act of giving an organ, for example, heart, lung, kidney, to save or improve the life of someone who needs a transplant. Tissue donation is when tissues in the body, for example, skin, corneas, bone, are donated to enhance the lives of others. You are able to donate some organs and tissues whilst you are alive, but most organ and tissue donations come from people who have died. Why is organ and tissue donation so important? People in need of transplants rely on people being willing to donate their organs and tissue to save or positively transform their lives. You could save or improve up to 9 lives by donating your organs when you die, and you can help even more people by donating tissue. Organ donation in Black and South Asian communities. Ethnicity matters when it comes to organ donation. Record numbers of people from Black and South Asian backgrounds received life-saving organs last year. However, Black and South Asian patients still wait longer than white patients for a transplant. Although people can receive a transplant from someone of any ethnicity, providing they are a match, the best transplants come from donors of the same ethnicity. All the main religions of the UK support the principles of organ donation. Right, so what I'm going to do is show a case study here. Manjinder's story, and I'll play it now.
I saw my mum on New Year's Day, and then on the following Sunday, I had a phone call from my dad and my brother saying that my mum had fallen. When we got there, we learned that she'd experienced a brain hemorrhage. When we were at the hospital, the consultant spoke with us, met us as a family, and said that my mum was really being kept alive by the machines. After we made that decision to switch the machines off, we had another meeting with the organ donation team, who asked us if we'd thought about it and what we wanted to do. And no, we hadn't thought about it at all. Not something that we discussed like a lot of families. And really, as it was my brother who decided, yes, that we would, because he felt like it was in keeping with my mum's very giving nature. Because she was a very devout Sikh woman, she'd say things like, when you die, your is with God, and it really doesn't matter what happens to your body. Your body's just body, it's just flesh. So it actually doesn't matter because your soul has gone. I think my mum wouldn't have minded at all. It would have agreed with the kind of woman she was and what she believed in, certainly. But I do understand that people, I have a fear about talking about these things, whether it's a cultural or religious or your background. You don't have to have these conversations regularly, but just sometimes, you know, it's absolutely fine. And certainly for a few years afterwards, you know, we got letters to explain where the organs had been donated, who they'd helped. So that was really positive. One of the recipients had their life extended by one of the organs we donated, and therefore they were able to see their child getting married that year, which otherwise wouldn't have happened. So, you know, that's great. You know, I think that my mother would have been pleased with that. You know, like if you've never thought about it, then perhaps talk to people who have in their family experienced organ donation, or, you know, find out from media, social media like this, and just think about it, because at the end of the day you want to make an informed decision, don't you? No matter who you are, you know, whatever your background is, whether you're male or female, just find out about it. See what makes you feel comfortable and make that decision.
Wonderful insight there, and certainly heartwarming viewing. Right, so back to the slides. I hope everyone is still with me. And so, how does organ donation work? Doctors will always try to save a patient's life first. Organ donation is only considered if a patient's life cannot be saved and only goes ahead after they have died. Organs are only removed for transplantation after a person has died and death is confirmed by doctors who are entirely independent of the transplant team. Before the removal of organs take place, NHS Blood and Transplant would ask your family to support your decision to donate and to provide important information about you. A specialist nurse provides support and care for the donor and their family. Families play a very important role by providing important information about their loved ones and supporting donation going ahead. Many families take comfort from knowing something positive came out of their loss. Who can be a donor? Although more than 500,000 people die each year across the UK, only around 1 in 100 die in circumstances where their organs can be donated. Each patient who dies in circumstances where organ donation is a possibility, for instance in A&E or intensive care, is assessed individually. It doesn't matter how old you are or if you've had an illness or condition, sign up to the NHS Organ Donor Register if you want to donate. Even if your organs cannot be used, you could still donate site or other tissue to help others. You do not need to die in hospital to potentially donate tissue. So, what organs and tissues can you donate? So let's start here. You've got the corneas, lungs, liver, small bowel, heart, kidneys, pancreas, and also heart valves, bones, tendons, and skin. Living donation. You can donate a kidney or part of your liver to someone in need of a transplant while you're alive. A living donor can donate to someone they know, such as a family member or friend, or someone they don't know. A growing number of people are offering to donate anonymously to someone on the UK transplant waiting list. These are known as non-directed altruistic donors. Nearly 700 people across the UK have donated a kidney to a stranger while they were alive, alongside the many thousands who have donated to a family member or a friend. To find out more information about helping someone by being a living donor, visit www.organdonation.nhs.uk/living donation. Why is it important to make and share your decision? Many people don't realize that their family would be approached if they died in circumstances where organ donation is possible. Around half of families agreed to donation going ahead if they are unaware of their loved one's decision to be a donor. This increases to over 9 out of 10 when the decision to be an organ donor is known. Sadly, many donation opportunities are lost every year because families don't know whether their loved ones wanted to be a donor or not. Many families feel enormous pride and comfort in knowing that their relative went on to save lives. So, the law in England has changed. Since spring 2020, all adults in England will be considered a potential organ donor unless they choose not to donate. If you have not recorded a decision on the NHS organ donor register or opt out of organ donation, it will be considered that you want to donate your organs. Organ donation will still be a gift. You will still have the right to choose whether or not to be an organ donor, and families will always be involved regarding your decision. Organ donation deemed consent Act 2019. All adults in the UK will be considered to have agreed to be an organ donor when they die, unless they have had recorded a decision not to donate or are in one of the excluded groups. Those excluded groups are people under 18, those who lack the capacity to understand the change, and people who have lived in England for less than 12 months or are not living here voluntarily. Do I still have a choice? Yes, you still have a choice about whether you want to be an organ donor or not when you die. You can register your decision, whatever that is, on the NHS Organ Donor Register. You can also specify which organs or tissues you would like to donate. Will my family still be involved? Yes. The family of a potential donor will always be approached to discuss the option of organ and tissue donation. This helps to make sure that any decision recorded on the NHS Organ Donor Register is your latest known decision. A specialist nurse will work with the family to help ensure that this is supported. Your family can tell us about any particular requests that you may have had to help ensure that organ donation goes ahead in line with your faith or beliefs. Your family provide important information about your medical, travel, and social history too. This information helps to check that your organs can be safely given to someone else. Right, what do you need to do? Record your organ donation decision, whatever that may be, on the NHS Organ Donor Register. Tell your family and friends what you have decided. If you have already registered but want to change your recorded decision, you can do this simply at any time by completing the Amend Your Details form online. I'm going to play a quick video, if you can just bear with me. Let's go to City Sikhs. City Sikhs created a video campaign alongside the NHS recently, and I'd like to play that for you now.
How was your day, Putter? Was the food enough?
I had a nice day, Mum. You sent so much food into work. We actually helped a lot of people. So thanks.
No worries, Putter. It's our duty to help others in the world. That is seva. साडे गुरुआं ने क्या है, हर एक इंसान ਨੂੰ कुछ ना कुछ दान करना चाहिदा है.
Bilkul, that's very true. And speaking of Seva, there's something that I wanted to ask you.
Go on, Putter.
Well, I was watching the news the other day, and they were saying that all adults agree to be organ donors when they die, unless they state that they don't wish to donate. So I was thinking, Mum, what do you actually think about organ seva? Would you be happy to donate?
Organ seva, I haven't actually thought about it before, but I think it would be a very good seva.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is something that we should talk about more, to be honest.
This affects us all. In 2020, 3% of deceased organ donors were Asians, but Asians made up 18% of those on the transplant waiting list. We need more Sikhs to donate their organs and make sure people get the right match with their blood and tissue type. That's why you should speak with your loved ones about it. For more info, see the NHS link below.
Wonderful. Back to the slide. And that just leaves me to conclude. Yes, find out more information at organdonation.nhs.uk.
Joining us now from her home in Derbyshire is Lindsay Jackson of the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice campaign.
My apologies, guys. Right, so thank you for listening in. I'm going to pass on now to Mr. Rohit Sagoo, founder of British Sikh Nurses. And Rohit, take it away.
Sat Sri Akal, everyone. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Rohit Sagoo. I'm founder of British Sikh Nurses. These are our details in terms of you want to contact us as well. Next slide. So just a little story in terms of how it all started. And British Sikh Nurses really works very closely with NHS Blood and Transplant and the team as well in terms of what we do in terms of delivering key messages and around conversations around organ donation, raising awareness about organ donation and stem cell donation as well within the South Asian community as well. We started in terms of it just about around five years ago, noticing the growing number of obesity and heart disease patients as well, and then had the inspiration to turn around and say, how do we proactively work with the Sikh community in terms of building better healthy lifestyles and bridging that gap between the NHS and the South Asian community as well. We were then approached by the Department of Health and Social Care to work with the South Asian community around spreading the message organ donation, stem cell donation, and living a healthy lifestyle, and also working as key drivers in terms of living donation as well. We base our principles on the Sikh faith of Seva, and we also have the ethos of the 5 C's in nursing and upholding the nursing professional as well. Next slide. As an organisation, we work with major Sikh organisations such as City Sikhs. We also work with Department of Health and Social Care, NHSPT, as I've said, and also we campaign, facilitate discussions around organ donation and stem cell donation on Asian TV channels like Agal channel, Sikh channel, and various other channels as well. We've also campaigned with City Sikhs in Parliament for organ donation, as well as working in Gurdwaras and reaching out to the Asian diaspora, and also working closely with other supporting donor families as well. Next slide. This is just a map in terms of our grassroots work that we do in our outreach work. So much of our work is based upon social media, but we also bridge the gap between the NHS and integrated care facilities and services as well. And we base a very personal approach for care of individuals and families and communities that are looking for living donors. And I'm going to touch on that in a few slides' time. And we also look at improving the healthy outcomes of Asian communities as well. Next slide. Our work so far in terms of what we've done. So we work heavily with DKMS and Anthony Nolan in terms of stem cell donation. So as Hardip mentioned, there are two types of donation. There's the deceased donation, there's the living donation, and there's also tissue donation as well, and also blood donation as well. And part of the blood donation is stem cell donation as well. So we've worked with DKMS and Anthony Nolan, and we've done several campaigns for them as well. So a few of them to mention is Match for Raji, Match for Camille, and Do It for Lila. It's a few of them as well. That's a list of a few that we've worked with as well. However, we also do work with organ donor registrations and promoted organ donor drives as well before the 2019 law change. But we have closely worked with families looking for living donations such as Hope for Anaya and Kidney for Jazz. We also take part in health screening for the Sikh community as well. Of approximately, we've screened around 3,000 people for common diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, and etc. Next slide, please. This is a visual of the work that we do and the grassroots work pre-pandemic, obviously. So we are slowly getting back to doing some work face to face with the community as well. But I think judging by this evening's news conference by Boris Johnson, we'll probably detract from that and go back to online working as we are doing at the moment. Next slide, please. So my main kind of thing was looking at the myth busting from the angle of Sikhi as well, and looking at the questions that you might ask from a Sikhi perspective in terms of organ donation. So really, is it permitted for Sikhs to do? And if we really think about giving organ donation or giving our organs to someone else, it's a process of seva. It's an act of seva. So really what Lord Singh of Wimbledon, CB, what he turned around and said, which is a nice quote to turn around and say, is the Sikh religion teaches that life continues after death in the soul and not the physical body. So the last act of giving and helping others through organ donation is both consistent with and in the spirit of the Sikh teachings as well. And that's really important to remember when we think about organ donation, or indeed have that discussion with our families and our loved ones about organ donation as well. Next slide. The other organ donation myth that we might want to bust is thinking about organ donation. It's a gift to an organ to help someone who needs a transplant. And the Sikh philosophy and teaching support that importance of putting yourself beyond anyone else's needs as well. And really coming back to really seva, the act of selfless service, to give without seeking reward or recognition. And that's the core tenet of the Sikh religion, one of the core tenets of the Sikh religion. And indeed, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, founder of the Sikh religion, and first of the 10 Gurus, and the Holy Guru Granth Sahib, really tells us that devoted their lives to the humanity and sacrificed their lives for looking after the welfare of others. And that's exactly what we do within Sikhi, sacrificing ourselves to look after the welfare of others. Seva can also be about donating your organ to another, and Sikhi does not attach taboos to organ donation or transplantation, and stresses that saving a human life is one of the noblest things you can do. And Sikhi also believes that your body does not need all its organs after death either. Hence why this campaign, if you can see down the bottom, is called Organ Seva. Next slide, please. The other common questions that we might get, and these common questions have come from not just NHSBT, but also the common questions that are asked to SNODs, and SNODs are specialist nurse in organ donation, who we work closely with as well. And these are the common questions that are asked as well. So will doctors do their best to save my life? So if you are end of life care, or something should happen suddenly, then yes, every healthcare has a duty of care to save your life first. And me as a nurse, as well as my peers and professionals within the NHS, have a duty of care to save your life at the first point of call. But despite the efforts, and if death is inevitable, organ and tissue donation will be considered as end-of-life care discussions to start with your family, friends, and next of kin. So the organ donation team don't just turn up soon as you pass somebody, your loved one has passed away. They will turn up just a little bit later if you've expressed a view, or if the family have expressed a view, or if the person who's deceased has left a wish to have their organs donated. Only when the end-of-life care planning is started that the NHS organ donation team come along and talk to the family and the family's needs as well. I must stress here that actually it's about the family as well. It's not just about the loved one, and we'll talk about that in a couple of slides' time, but it is about the family's decision as well. If you have a medical condition, can you donate? Well, if you have an illness or medical condition, that doesn't necessarily prevent that person from becoming an organ or tissue donor. That's fine. But the decision is whether some organs or all your tissues are suitable for transplantation. And that will be decided by a medical specialist at the time of donation. And they'll take into account your medical, travel, and social history too. Next slide, please. The other common question, if I've registered as an organ donor, can my family change my decision? Now, with the 2019 law that came in, Max and Kira's law, everyone is automatically put onto the organ donor register. However, if for your loved one, if they have deceased, your loved one, the family can change that decision if they need to. So we know that in most cases that most families do agree to organ donation and the wishes of their loved ones as well. But if there's any objection, they do take that into account as well. So if it's a soft option that we have within this country, and if there are any, if the decision causes distress to the family as well, yes, then actually the SNOD team or the organ donation team will withdraw very quickly. So we have the patient's and your family's best interest at heart. That's the most important thing to think about organ donation. So we're not just after, the doctors and nurses, or the organ donation team aren't just after the nurses. They do deem the individual as an individual, and that there's a lot of respect and dignity around that individual as well. Next slide, please. I think that's probably the end of my show. But if there's any questions, there will be questions towards the end as well. Thank you very much for your time.
And thank you so much, Rohit, for your presentation. I think that's answered a lot of questions that some of us may have been thinking about, but maybe weren't able to articulate as well. So thank you for that. Okay. We're absolutely delighted this evening to be joined by Aki and Tina, who have a very unique and a very important story to tell about how organ donation has touched their family. So without further ado, Aki and Tina, the floor is yours.
Right, okay, yeah. So
perhaps you'd like to just perhaps you'd just like to tell us a little bit about yourselves and what led to the situation around you considering and thinking about organ donation in your family.
Right, okay. I myself personally, but always wanted to donate my organs right back from when I first applied for my provisional driving license. And I looked at it and I thought, yes, I want to be an organ donor. And I never knew later in life there was a reason behind all of this. Okay, so years later we got married, and then into 1994 we had twins. But early on through that we discovered that one of the twins had a problem. They used to call them twin 1 and twin 2. And twin 1 was smaller, and the fluid round in the sac was reduced. So they started scanning, and they picked up that twin 1 had polycystic kidneys. Anyway, they didn't give him, well, it was a little boy, they didn't give him much. The prognosis was really poor. He wasn't supposed to live and all the rest of it. And we would end up having one child. We went through the whole pregnancy, and towards, I had a C-section, had both the twins, and Akash, our son,
was taken away straight away, and he was put into he was in ICU, and he remained in ICU. And again, they kept saying he's deteriorating, and then I don't know, he just held his own, and then they started talking to us about maybe getting him up to 6 months old, a bit strong enough, and we'd start him on kidney dialysis. And we thought, right, okay, so we brought him home and we sort of persevered with him, but he was really, really poorly. So we got him up to 18 months, they said, dialysis, but at 6 months he ended up on dialysis. He just couldn't go on any longer. Anyway, so we lived on dialysis off and on until just before his 6th birthday. And he became really, really poorly. He wasn't dialysing effectively. And we became really desperate for a transplant, for a kidney to become available for Akash. So we then went down the route of asking, can you not test one of us to be Akash's donor? Anyway, back then, this was 2003, they started testing me and all the rest of it. Tested both of us, but I was the compatible match back then. So 2nd of January 2004, I became Akash's first donor. And he lived with that kidney, and it just changed his life. Normal life, could eat and drink what he wanted. The milestones between him and his twin sister, not that he's ever caught up, but he could do things that she was doing, and it just changed our lives. And then back in 2015, early 15, that kidney started failing. So then I'll pass the rest on to Aki now.
I mean, it's realistic, like Tina says, I was tested, but at that stage, initially, I've got a different blood group to Akash, and obviously mother's going to have the same blood group, so that's why Tina was able to do it there and then. In 2015, when it deteriorated, his body doesn't take well on dialysis. His body just rejects tubes put inside him and things like that. It just don't allow it. He got seriously ill, back on dialysis. He wasn't taking up the dialysis, the fluid wasn't coming off. And I got tested up. They said there is a way you can do it this time. And I said, that's fine, just do it. It's a no-brainer. At the end of the day, it's saving his life and giving him another chance to continue with his life, have a future. They started testing me. I mean, being an organ donor doesn't mean, or wanting to be an organ donor doesn't mean you're going to be an organ donor. They have to test you. There's lots of tests that they have to do. They have to make sure that you have got 2 kidneys to give. Because people are born with 1 kidney, people are born with 2 kidneys, people are 3 and 4. And what they do is they make sure that they leave a good kidney that's strong enough for you to continue your life as well. Okay, so there's a lot of testing they do. It can go to the stage where they're doing all the testing and come near the end of it, they find something and they can't do it. So, yeah, you do need a lot of people to be ready, or not, maybe not a lot of people, but we do need more people on that register and being ready to do things like this. But I was all tested up. I was due to give my kidney to him on the 30th of October 2015, and 2 weeks prior, because he wasn't dialysing properly, the fluid wasn't coming off him, his blood pressure was creeping up and up, and he ended up having a double brain hemorrhage. Okay, he went into a coma for about 2 weeks, and at that time we thought, that's it. He's had his life. He's going to go now. He fought for it. He came out of it. When he came out of it, he couldn't speak. Obviously, brain injury gives people different kind of outcomes. At that time, he couldn't speak. He had no words coming out of his mouth. So the hospital basically turned around to us and says, the anaesthetic team basically said that we can't put him under general anaesthetic now for a year, because he's had that brain injury. So we had a meeting with one of the consultants and we said, look, if that's going to happen, he's not going to survive. He won't survive a year on dialysis because look what happened in 3-4 months. So we basically turned around to the hospital and said, right, that's it then. If that's what you're going to do, stop the dialysis, stop his medication, we'll take him home. If he's got a week, if he's got a month, if he's got 2 months, we'll deal with that. Okay. And I think they had some meetings with all the big consultants and directors, and they basically turned around and says, right, okay, we'll do the transplant in 6 weeks' time on the 27th of November. And on the 27th of November 2015, I actually became Akash's second donor. And he's now got mum's and dad's kidneys inside him. Back to, I'd say, about 90% of his life, he's still got complications due to the brain injury. But that's something that he's got to deal with, or we've got to deal with. Sorry, that's a little dog in the background fighting. So that's the gist of our story, but there is another twist to it as well, because on the back of that, the fact that we were both able to give Akash a donor, and the gentleman earlier was talking about Seva, we wanted to give something back to society. So we started volunteering to feed the homeless people. And then after a little while, we ended up taking that group over, and we've actually turned it into a fully fledged charity, and we actually feed the homeless community as well in Leeds and Bradford. So we've turned it from one area, because we wanted to get, you know how we look at SIFT, when people give you SIFT, they say, God bless you, this, that, and that. We want that SIFT to go to Akash, not to us. We don't want it for ourselves. We want him to have a long life, and we want him to continue his life. And yes, this kidney I've given him, it could last him 20, 30 years. But nobody knows how long it's going to last. He may require another organ, another transplant. So this is why we do a lot of work on organ donation and the awareness of organ donation, because we need to get people out there talking about it. It's like the gentleman just said, and the nurses were saying the fact that if you don't talk to your family can still say no at the time when a person passes away. The biggest thing we need to do is get people of Asians, general Asians, talking to the families and letting them know what their wishes are. That's the biggest thing we can do.
And can I ask a couple of questions? When it came to making the decision, obviously you're his parents, so it was a no-brainer. You instinctively knew. But did you have discussions with the wider family? Was there any resistance in your wider family about doing this?
Yes, well, resistance you say there, okay. When Tina was getting prepped up initially to give Akash his first kidney, my mother, she's passed away now, and she was very reserved. She says, no, you can't do it. And I think it's educating people, making people understand, because they came from a different generation. They came from India to Africa and then back to UK. And her attitude was, we've got one disabled person in the house. If you give your kidney, there's going to be 2 disabled people in the house. And it was like, but he's not disabled. He needs a kidney. But after Tina gave Akash his kidney, Mum was going around saying, look, my daughter gave her kidney to her son. You know, there's that different reason. They see different things, but it's just getting that initial change in perspective to get people to understand what you're actually doing.
And have you seen in your encounters, and you've gone around the country talking about the importance of donation, and we're so grateful that you are willing to share your story with us as well. Have you encountered people kind of totally skeptical about this, thinking that it's not the right thing to do?
Tell them that story.
I don't, to be honest with you, if I'm really, really going to be frank with you, I don't think so much in the Sikh community. Okay. We did a few years ago, we did a huge campaign in Leeds city centre with a group that come down to Leeds, from London to Leeds. And we did it was mainly to target the Black and Asian communities. And what we found was, and which is really, really interesting, was that it was within the Muslim community that we saw the resilience. Okay, and what had happened was Akash was only sort of like, I think he was post 2 years of his family, been around about 9 years old, something like that. And his little friend, Joel, younger than him, he's probably around about 4 or 5. And you know, you kind of think to yourself, well, let the children target it and let these youngsters tell them their story, okay? And it might make, these are youngsters, and look, they're here talking to us about organ donation. So we did. I stood from a distance and heard they approached this couple, and they kind of sort of said to them that, you know, we've both had transplants. You know, would you consider joining the organ donor register? And it was no, won't have it. So then I had to kind of step in a little bit, and I kind of said to them, look, how would you feel if within your family somebody needed an organ? And they said, it doesn't matter, because what they said to us was, well, we've got 2 family members. One has had a heart and one has a kidney transplant. And I kind of looked at her at that point, and I thought, and you still say no? And all I could do was just walk away. You know, you can only, you can educate, but there's only so much you can do. And you kind of think that these 2 youngsters in front of you are living proof of what the gift of life means. Okay, and that's what we felt.
And one final question before we bring Rohit and Hardeep back in again. How difficult was the process itself to go through? Not the decision making, but actually the kind of the medical interventions as well. Was that?
It took a bit longer for me, but I think mine was 12 years prior to Aki's.
Things have changed a lot.
And things have really changed now. Okay. And when I look back at what I went through, there wasn't as much, like Aki had the talks with the priest and the counsellors and all that kind of stuff. The psychological support he had, back then I never had. Okay, for me it was, I went through a lot more rigorous testing back then as well. And it is all to do with how far science has come. And but that was it, kind of thing. And I think with me, I was just like, that's my son. I don't want to, you know, I was like, that's my son, and this is all I want to do. And I had this all the way. It was about a year for me, the testing took place. With Aki, it was really quickly. It was about 3 months. And all I kept thinking in my head was, this is my son. I have to do whatever I have to do to save his life. And that was it. And not even that, it was, you know, we'd, as a young couple, you know, with another child, it drastically affected our lives as well, you know, and our daughter as well, kind of thing. And we just wanted, and it's an awful thing to say, but a bit of a break from, you know, looking after or emotionally going through what we were going through. Anyway, I was like this robotic, this is it, I'm going to get to there, I'm going to do it. And I tell you when it hit me when they came for me on the trolley, and it was too late. Not that I would have changed my mind, but I hadn't spoken to anybody and I wouldn't talk to anybody. But when I saw that trolley, I thought, oh my God, this is going to happen.
It then became real.
That's when it
the
became
thing is,
real.
when Tina had it, yeah, there was a long cut along the side. But now, what they do is, it's keyhole surgery to an extent. So they're basically going with keyhole from the stomach, bring the kidney down, disconnect it, bring it down from the front, and there's a 5-inch cut to take the kidney out. And the recovery time, I was back at work after 2 months. I
had 4 months off. Aki had two months off.
So things are getting improved. They're improving.
Really coming out. I mean, and you've got to think our lives. Has it changed our lives? No, it hasn't.
Nope, not the slightest.
We wouldn't know. We only know because we've got a scar, but we wouldn't know that we've only got 1 kidney between, well, 2 between us, kind of thing. We don't know now. I mean,
this is what I said earlier. That nobody knows how many kidneys they've got inside them until you actually have that scan. So you could be getting prepped to give an organ or give a kidney to a loved one, but it could come out that you can't do it because you've only got one. Nobody knows, you see.
That's an amazing statement, and something that I never realised. I just naturally presumed that everyone had two kidneys, but that we have a gift inside of us. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I can't thank you enough for your story, and there's lots of love coming in the chat. I'm saying respect to you and thank you for everything that you're doing and that wider saver aspect as well. We'll invite our other speakers in as well. And hopefully, if you've got questions, please do put them in the comment section and we'll put them out to you and we'll put them to our speakers. We've got a couple of minutes to discuss that. I know someone's coming in.
I just want to say, Aki and Tina, and on behalf of Sikh nurses and nurses and SNODs around the country and everyone else, it's such a joy to see recipient and donor in the same family. And I'm sure everyone is going to wish Akash the best life as well, and the two of you as well. And just to reiterate in terms of organ donation as well, not only just Akash is being looked after, but Aki and Tina will be lifelong looked after as well. And that's really important to remember. If you do give, you are a donor, you're looked after for everything that you do. Every little health spell that you might have, you'll be double checked and all sorts of stuff as well. But such an inspirational story. And may Vaheguru bless you, all of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
But like that's why we're all ambassadors now, so we go around talking about it now, just getting more everybody on the system.
And our thing is,
I'll get a cash down.
Is we really do believe in Seva. You know, we're devout. We go to the Gurdwara and all the rest. We do all of that, and part of what we do with the homeless community. And our biggest thing is that we solely believe that you've come here with nothing, you are going to leave with nothing. So why not make a difference? And that's what we believe in.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Lots of comments coming in the chat. So to people who've asked whether there can be presentations nearer them as well, we'll contact you afterwards and share with you some of the resources that we've been able to access. And I would strongly recommend NHSBT's website as well for further resources. Rohit, just going back on that comment you just made about ongoing support, what type of ongoing support do people receive once they've been a donor?
Yeah, I mean, once you've been a donor, Aki and Tina can attest to this as well. You are you are monitored regularly. If there is anything in terms of health anomalies that come up as well, you're then monitored and you're also looked after. You're put on medications. You're almost, you know, we go into our GPs to get an MOT, but for Aki and Tina, it's a regular MOT, and you can't get better than that because they'll pick up on things that they need to pick up on, and it's also the aftercare is amazing. It's equal to the aftercare that Akash will be getting as well. There's probably no difference between the care that Akash will be getting as a donor and Aki and Tina as recipients. So yeah, the care is second to none. But it is a heartfelt decision to make as well. I mean, we campaigned for a young girl called Anaya, which you may have heard about, and so we
did some work with that.
Yeah, so we were the catalyst for Anaya's family. And Jyoti, and you know, she contacted us and said, where do we go with Anaya? And we, you know, Anaya found she couldn't find a donor or a match within her family, but she found someone from outside her family. Whereas Akash is kind of lucky to find it within his family, and that's sometimes far and few between that story as well. And so we are working with other families. Like there's a 50-year-old that I'm working with at the moment called a kidney for kidney for Bali. So Bali's a 50-year-old. Yeah, and you know, I'm working with his family as well. Kiran and Bali, I'm working with. He's struggling to find someone because there's no donor in his family as well, and so that makes it very difficult. So there's two conversations that we really need to think about. It's a living donor where you can actually, as you're living, give your donor altruistically, or there's also the deceased donor as well. And in some cases, when you've got some cases where the patient has had a couple of deceased donors given to them, but they haven't quite worked after some time, they almost have to go to a living donor to live that much longer. And it's very difficult then to look at family and have those conversations with family in terms of giving donor as well. But I will say, the aftercare is amazing. I'll let you go, Aki, because you were going to say.
Can I just say on the back of what you just said there is also the paired scheme, the kidney sharing scheme. So basically, say like I've got a child that needs a kidney, and somebody I'm not a match to that child, my son or whatever, and then they'll find another family that's a match to me. So I'll give my kidney to their child, and they'll give it to somebody else. And it's like a round circle thing, and everybody kind of in that group then has the ability of getting their child or the sibling or whoever it is an organ donor, but one of your members have to give an organ to somebody else. So there is that way as well.
So there's lots of ways that you can. Yeah.
I've got a cash again.
Hello.
Hello, Akash. Nice to meet you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Good evening.
You joined us. Nice to meet you, Akash.
Nice to meet you too.
And Aki, you were talking about counselling as well. So what was that like to go through the counselling? That was in preparation to make sure that you were ready to donate?
Yeah, there's various things to look at. Is they make sure that you are of sound mind to be able to give your organ, that you're right, you know what you're doing. They look at the fact that you haven't been bribed to do it. And is there anything else to look at? Making sure that you're mentally stable to do it and physically well, and obviously the fact that bribery does come into it. And it sounds to say that, but sometimes that is an equation that they look at to make sure that you are not forced into doing this transplant as well.
Interesting, thank you. Hardeep, did you have any comments or any points that you wanted to share as final thoughts with our viewers and the rest of the speakers?
Just first off, again, thank you for everyone who's contributed today and everyone who's joined us on the live stream. I think what really hit me recently is how few organs are coming forward. I thought, there'd be thousands and thousands and thousands. There actually isn't. It's a really, really small number. But there is hope. There is hope. People are listening now. There is a better relationship between the younger and the older generation. Let's keep the communication going. And, this hashtag Organ Seva really explains it. When we're gone, this body no longer serves us. So let's allow it to serve others and let's save lives. And I strongly believe the uptake can be very, very high. So fingers crossed, we're all going to work as hard as we can. And let's just hope for a better future for everyone.
Thank you, Hardeep. And I don't think I can sum it up better myself. Absolutely spot on. Rohit, any final messages for our viewers about what to inspire them to get involved as well?
All I'll say to you, with Aki and Tina, we've got two donor heroes in front of us. And you don't need much more inspiration than looking at the two donor heroes in front of us, as well as the donor recipient, who is a handsome young man, may I add. Yeah. But what I will say to you is the most important thing about that you need to remember for all of us is having that conversation around organ donation. Coming up to Christmas, and Christmas, we're all going to spend time with our families and our loved ones as well. And I remember this very distinctively. I had a conversation with my father-in-law. As soon as I mentioned the book of organ donation, it almost shut me down. When I started the campaign 5 years ago, almost shut me down. We're not going to talk about it. It's a taboo subject. It shouldn't be on the dinner table. And it's almost as if there's an Indian analogy that you're wishing death on somebody if you're talking about organ donation. Yeah. But it's not that way. What it is having that conversation to acknowledge people's wishes. And if you acknowledge the wishes and save their wishes, because we do have wishes, and it might be a wish that I give my organs away, that those wishes are acknowledged and they're carried forward as well. And that's the most important bit. Have those conversations. We talk about weddings. We talk about gossip, family gossip. Who's got the next Mercedes? Who's rich? Who isn't this? Who's getting married and etc. But we actually never talk about what we're going to do in after death, what's going to happen at death and after death. And that's the conversations that we should really be having in our families as well. I've had it with mine. I've had it with my wife, and she's acknowledged our wishes, and it only takes that kind of 20-minute conversation around a dinner table and talk about it, and then acknowledge it and revise it and say, this is what my parents want, or this is what my grandparents want, or this is indeed what I want.
Thank you, Rohit. So if there's one thing that we can do and take away after this session today is let's go and have those conversations and make sure that the people that are closest to us know what our wishes are as well.
Can I just have a quick say? Can I just say a little bit
Yeah.
here? Sorry, just going back to what Hardy was talking about. Yeah, when my mum passed away, Akash wouldn't go near the body. Okay, so I explained to him, I said, Akash, that what you see there is a vessel in what we came in, and my mum's already gone from that. So it's just a vessel. It's just a shell. There's nothing to be worried about. And what Rohit was saying, just to say, one body after death can save 8 lives through organs, and it can actually change 36 people's. It can transform 36 other people as well upon that.
Wow.
So you look at the number of people you save, you're helping, saving and helping. You're saving 8 people's lives, and you're helping 36 other people. That's where you got to look at it. And what more saver can there be than that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tina, any final comments for the viewers?
For me, it's just important that you have that conversation with your families. That chat takes place, and just declare your wishes, and that's the only way that we're going to move forward with this, and it basically save lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, to everybody, to Hardeep, Rohit, Aki and Tina and Akash, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us some very difficult conversations, but important conversations nonetheless. And City Sikhs will carry on working on this issue because we believe passionately that actually the more we can talk about this and the more we can myth bust some of the misunderstandings out there, the healthier our community is going to be collectively as well. And that's in everyone's interest. So on that note, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. If you need more resources, if you want more advice, or you want to get in touch with anyone, please do email us at City Sikhs, which is info@citysikhs.org.uk, and we'll do whatever we can to help because organ saver is important to all of us. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.